Boxing Gossip Podcast, edition number 90. Happy Wednesday. Good evening, everyone. Can see a lot of regular faces in the chat. Good evening to everyone in the chat. Thanks for everyone who's joined. Can see there's over 40 people waiting live in the chat for us before we even start. So huge thank you to those people, regular supporters. 26 of you have hit the thumbs up before we've even gone live. Thank you very much to all those people, whether you're watching live or whether you're watching after this has been uploaded. Please continue to hit that thumbs up button, which will encourage new people to check out what we're doing on the channel. Let me start with a bit of housekeeping. There was no pod last week. I did send out an update for that on my Twitter, on my Facebook. If you want to get those, link to my Facebook and link to my Twitter in the description below. So do check those out for future use. But unfortunately, work commitments got in the way. But we're back with a bang tonight, and we've got a busy enough agenda of stuff to get through. So to give you guys a little bit of a taster, we're going to start by reviewing some of the boxing from the last 2 weeks. We might talk a bit of Scott Quigg. We might talk a bit of Joe Joyce. We're going to talk about some of the big news in the sport of boxing. Tyson Fury doesn't look like he's going with Eddie Hearn. Liam Smith, Saddam Ali. Lomachenko versus Jorge Linares. Jamie Cox versus John Ryder. Quite a few fights being made. Finally, we'll look ahead to next week's boxing, most notably Lucas Browne versus Dillian Whyte, and we'll be discussing how the panel see that one going down. I'm pleased to say already joined by Seri and joined by Jay, who are on the panel. Thank you to those guys as always. Jet and Paul, I think, are going to join, but potentially join a little bit later. Irish Tom is actually traveling to the UK, coming back from Ireland. He's going to try and join, but it may be more of a cameo from Irish Tom. But thank you to the podcast panel, as always, for giving up their time and for making the effort to attend. So let me start by bringing in Jay. And Jay, I guess let's start by casting our minds back to Scott Quigg versus Oscar Valdez. Did you check that one out, pal?
Yeah, I did. Dear, oh dear. I mean, what a disaster. Scott Quigg obviously coming in overweight, refusing to do the next day weigh-in. Couldn't really give an explanation on why the weight was not made. Valdez's camp obviously really unhappy about it. Decided to fight on. Apparently came in at 142, which is big, which is welterweight territory. Going off the fight, the guy hasn't improved since going to America. His game plan, I think his game plan must have been to smother as much work and keep the pressure on Valdez, but Valdez just far too quick, far too slick. There was no jab from Scott Quigg. I think he threw one jab within the first round, obviously targeting the body with those swinging hooks to the body and to the head, coming in straight lines, no head movement, just very, very poor. I mean, obviously probably well received by American television because there was a lot of action involved, but it just wasn't pretty. I mean, Valdez just teeing off as and when. First 4 rounds, you pretty much knew how the fight was going to go. A little bit of success in the 5th. That was the only way he was going to win it, with a big lucky shot to hopefully put Valdez on his arse. But obviously that didn't happen. And yeah, Scott Quigg just hasn't improved as a fighter. You know, he was never someone that I thought really highly of, but even less so now. I honestly, if Prince Nazim was watching that fight, he'd have definitely told him to retire, because there is no, I don't see where he's going to go from that defeat. If you look at the ratings of that division, you know, you've got Santa Cruz, Frampton, Gary Russell Jr., Abner Maris, Valdez himself, Selby, Warrington, Diaz. Scott Quigg's rated 9th in that division on BoxRec. Those top 8 beat him, I believe. So I really don't know where he would go from here, but overall just not a very good display and very unimaginative, and I don't really know what he's been doing for the past, you know, since the Carl Frampton loss and since he left Joe Gallagher. What he's been told, I really don't know, because the plan to go in there and smother Valdez did not work, was not going to work, because Valdez just far too quick, far too slick. Valdez is a good fighter. He's a very good fighter, and well deserving of that title that he held.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, Jay, when I look at Quigg, my perception is that he has regressed. I appreciate he had an injury going into this fight, so to an extent, it's kind of hard to, rate him based on that performance. But if I look back at the guy who, stopped Kiko Martinez, if I look back at the guy who, for my money, still fought Carl Frampton to quite a close decision, that guy seems to have gone, and he seems to be very little more than a sort of pub brawler in terms of his style. He's leading with his chin up in the air. He's taking 20 shots to give one. I think he's massively, massively regressed. I actually think the move to Freddie Roach for his style has been an immensely negative move. I mean, is that a fair summary?
I'd say so. Yeah. As I said, I didn't see what he's been learning, what he's been doing. The plan just seemed to be very basic. Let's just put as much pressure on him as we possibly can and try and wear him down. And they obviously, a lot of people talk about Scott Quigg's, fitness and his conditioning, which is, he was blowing after the fifth. He was blowing hard after he caught Valdez a couple of times. But you can't, at that level, especially in that such a good division, you can't rely purely on conditioning and pace. There has to be some sort of method in your madness, and it just wasn't there. The plan was not there. And it's whether, if that was the plan going into it, then fair enough, it didn't work. But if there was a plan and he couldn't execute because of lack of ability, lack of skills, then that's very worrying. Because honestly, if and I know he had an injury, but I wouldn't really take too much off that, because he still went into the fight, he still fought. But off that sort of performance, would he beat a Santa Cruz? Would he beat Abnamaris? Would he beat a Selby, Gary Russell Jr. when he decides to fight? I mean, it's you just don't see it, do you? You don't see an elite fighter when you see Scott Quigg, and I don't see him winning a title at that weight.
I completely agree. As for Oscar Valdez, Jay, I really struggle to work out how highly I rate Oscar Valdez. There's been times I've seen him and I thought he's a real class act. This fight, yes, he beat Scott Quigg conclusively, but he, again, did it looking like a fighter who himself was potentially beatable. And potentially Quigg, despite his weaknesses, was able to expose some frailties in Valdez. How good do you rate Valdez in the context of what is a very competitive division?
I mean, he's not, I wouldn't say he's top three, but he is very good. He works well off the jab. He's pretty good on his feet. He's got quick enough hands. I think there is a possibility of all the stuff that happened pre-fight could have knocked his mind off a little bit. Maybe that pressure sort of fighter that he was fighting against in what was Scott Quigg, maybe that caused him a few problems. Maybe he struggles to deal with that a little bit. I thought he dealt with it quite well. He'd box off the jab, step away. He got good head movement. He obviously can take a shot, because he got hit clipped a couple of times quite clean by someone who's 142 pounds. So I rate him quite highly, and I think he's got a bit more to learn. I think he's still really, I mean, how old is he? He's 27. He's the youngest pretty much by Joe Diaz. He's had 24 fights. I think there's still room for improvement there, and I think he'll get better myself.
Good stuff. Jay, when we're talking, I appreciate we can't talk about it too much because the fight only lasted 30 seconds, but any comments on the continued progress of Joe Joyce?
Again, I was quite looking forward to seeing this fight. I like to see Joe Joyce. I like to see how he's developed. He hasn't really had enough fights or enough time really to probably develop as quick as he'd like to, or as David Hay would have liked him to. He's obviously got ability. But that guy he was fighting, I watched your video and you were pretty much spot on. I kind of bought into this guy off one interview. I was like, yeah, when you say a guy's coming in, what, he was 6'10"?
Yeah.
10, 22 stone, something like that. You know, talked a really good game, great story. I thought, you know, he's unbeaten. He got some knockouts on his record. I thought, you know, anyone of 6'10", 22 stone, 9 undefeated with 7 knockouts, you're thinking he's going to cause someone some problems, but oh, geez, come totally out of shape, really bad shape. Sometimes you can blame a fighter for that. Sometimes you can't, in the sense that, you know, he's obviously not full time. He's a part-time boxer, and he's obviously looking for a few quid, and he got that few quid. How much he was, I don't really know, but yeah, it's that is the sort of opponent that Joe Joyce does not need. You know, we've seen more and more how highly decorated amateurs get moved quite quickly now, and how the elite amateurs can quite quickly step over into the professional game and do quite well. And it's almost like a Lomo or a Joe Joyce, for instance, and even to a certain extent Anthony Joshua, are 10 fights in already into their pro game. Do you know what I mean? So when we're getting his third fight against someone like that, it's just not doing any favours. I don't know whether that's. I obviously don't think that's on the side of David Haye or that promotional side, because I think they probably do want to push him fast and they do want to get him those big fights. I think they were quite willing, whatever the politics involved with him fighting like a Chisora, I think they'd be quite happy to put him in with Chisora. I think he beats Chisora. I know why Chisora wouldn't take it. Why would you? You know, it doesn't make sense to him. But, you know, it's going to be difficult to find him. If they want to move him quickly, which they obviously do, they kind of almost want to bypass the British level. So that makes it quite difficult, because then you've really got to, you know, try and get the names in with him. And if people, you know, I listened to Dave Allen, and Dave Allen said, like, by far, he's the best British standout heavyweight there is, bar Anthony Joshua. He is pretty much the man, you know, and you can see in him. But he's got to fight, you know, a Sam Sexton or a Hughie Fury or a Chisora or a Dave Allen. You know, he's got to start fighting those sort of people, but it's almost like they're trying to bypass those people and jump straight into that top 10 in the heavyweight division as quickly as possible. But in order for him to do that, he needs to get some decent names on his record, I think.
Yeah. I think at the age of 32. Fights like the one we saw on the weekend are just a waste of time, because he's not learning anything from them, and he's not, you know, building any experience or, you know, building a world ranking or anything like that from taking them. So for me, it felt like a missed opportunity. I kind of agree. I'd like to see him fight like domestic names. I quite like the Tom Little fight, the Dave Allen fight, if it can get made. I think that's one that, again, would make sense. You know, I know the Chisora fight isn't going to happen, but, you know, that wasn't a bad fight to look at, I don't think, as well. So
he's beaten better and faced better in the WSB. You know, he's had that experience. He's beaten and fought better people than he's fighting now. So it kind of doesn't make sense, you know. So I understand in the age, but he's not an old 32. He's a young 32. Let's be honest, because he's not been in those. You know, he's not 20 professional fights down the line and took some big. You know, took some heavy fights on and some long 12 rounds. So he's kind of fresh. But, yeah, you're right. He just needs to step its game up. But it's hard. It's hard. I don't think it's easy to matchmake him as I'd like, because possibly the money's not there. If he was a Sky fighter, possibly, or a Frank Warren fighter, the money may be there to attract the better fighters for the risk-reward sort of thing. But Chisora, he's not going to fight him because he beats Chisora. Where does Chisora go? Chisora's, you know, his stock is low at the moment. He would pretty much finish him if he fought Joe Joyce now. And yeah. I think a lot of those unbeaten, you know, UK heavyweights, again, won't want to fight him because they probably know how good he is and they know it's a loss, you know. and who's going to want to take a guaranteed loss for very little money?
Could be a real conundrum in terms of matching him, certainly. Okay. Thanks for that, Jay. I'll bring you back in a second. I can see Iris Thomas joined. Good evening, Iris. We'll come to you next. Let me bring in Suri. Suri, let me take you back to 2 weeks ago and Quigg Valdez. Obviously, you heard the discussion between Jay and I. What's your take on where these two guys stand, mate?
First of all, can you hear me?
I'm going to turn you up slightly, but yes, you're coming through clear enough, sorry.
Yeah, so I mean, pretty much Jay and yourself just pretty much ran through everything there in that little bit there. So I mean, I pretty much agree with everything that was said. I mean, obviously the weight scenario, we'll never really know the truth, will we? Of course, it's easy to mention an injury after something like that and all that business, but I mean, have we got any confirmation that his foot was actually fractured?
I haven't seen it myself, but certainly that's what his team are constantly referring to.
That's what the story is. Fair enough. And to be fair, I mean, Scott Quigg doesn't seem like the type of guy who'd come in, heavy on purpose. And like you said, it doesn't make sense because the world title was no longer on the line. He lost out on money as well, and he doesn't seem like the type of guy who would come in, overweight without working hard. He is a hard worker. That's the only thing he really has going for him. Let's be honest. He's not a elite fighter in any sort of way. He's just a hard worker, and he's a committed guy, and he's a tough bastard. Pardon my language. That's just the That's all he's got going for him. That's literally all it is. And I agree with what Jay said. He's not winning a world title at 126. Even if he goes back down to 122, he's not winning a world title there now anyway. And he can't go up to 130 and win a world title, so he's not going to win a world title regardless. And the one, the world title he had was a regular version anyway. So we all know he's not really a world, elite top fighter. I'm not trying to run him down. I'm just stating the facts here, and this is the reality, isn't it? The fight itself, I mean, it was a good scrap. You know what I mean? It was a war, wasn't it? It was all out war, and it was in terms of the way his nose was smashed by the end of it, and Valdez's jaw and his teeth. It was clearly not an easy fight for Valdez by any means, and of course I appreciate Scott Quigg's weight was over 140 and all that business, but I mean, I'm sure. I mean, 126 is the weigh in, and they're going to come in around a stone heavier anyway, so that's pretty much around about what he would have weighed in, wouldn't it? Even if he weighed in at 126, a lot of fighters usually hydrate about a stone, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, Hearn said that he'd usually come in at 140. Whether or not that's true or not, I don't know. But Hearn said he was only a pound or two heavier than he would have been on a normal fight night.
Yeah, he did look a lot bigger, to be fair, though, guys. I'm sure everyone agrees with that. He looked massive compared to Valdez. But Valdez showed that he has got. He's not just a hype job as such. I'm not saying that beating Scott Quigg proves that, but he shows that he's a guy who can go in there and really get it done. And he dug deep. He was hurt on a few occasions in terms of I don't necessarily mean Scott Quigg hurt him in terms of through his boxing and the way he fought. But I mean he caught injuries, broken jaw, and his teeth and all that. So there's a lot of questions that he answered about himself as well. I mean lately we're seeing a lot of questions being answered about fighters who we may have questioned before, meaning Deontay Wilder with his chin and his heart against Ortiz. Now we've seen Valdez has shown he's got that type of grit and he's a warrior as well. And he fought very, very valiantly, and he showed that he's got the hand speed, he's got the combination punching, and he's got a certain level of boxing IQ as well. I agree with yourself and Jay. I don't think he's top three in the weight. He's probably the least accomplished champion in the division. And that's absolutely fine. He's still got time to develop, and we'll see if he actually faces any of these guys. Because bear in mind, Bob's not going to throw him in with any of the other champions, so he's never going to get a chance to face those guys, is he, realistically speaking? Because they're all on the Al Heyman side, apart from even Lee Selby's with Al Heyman, but because he's UK, he might be able to fight, but I don't know. But Valdez himself, I'm very interested to see what he can do. Moving on from here, Scott Quigg, where does he go? I mean, again, cool. He may have won a lot of US fans by having that balls to the wall type of attitude and going out there and really digging deep and then just putting it all on the line. But who can he fight now? He's not going to be able to qualify for a world title shot straight away. He's not going to be able to compete with a Santa Cruz or a Gary Russell Jr. They'll beat him. He's just very, very basic and very limited. And let's be honest, lads, I mean this applies to both fighters. You cannot have those type of fights too many times in your career. That took a lot out of both fighters' careers, that fight right there and then. And it's not a nice thing to say, but that's the reality. That was a brutal fight, and then they both got some serious damage there and a lot of miles on the clock, as we say. So good little scrap, but I'm not sure what it really does for either man's career at this point. It just they both have to move on and carry on doing what they did beforehand, isn't it? Really, Scott Quigg have to try and figure out a way to find his way back into some sort of decent fight at a decent level, and then build from there again. And Valdez continues where he's at.
Yes, no, totally agree. And what's your take on the Joe Joyce situation? Jay was alluding to the fact it may be difficult to match him. What sort of opponents would you like to be looking at for him next, sorry?
Yeah, I mean, look, the thing is, the way they're trying to put him out there is as a essentially a pro anyway, in terms of a guy who's got so much experience, and obviously he's got the the WSB experience, the amateur experience, and he's kind of ready to go for decent level fighters. I mean, obviously the fight on the weekend was over in the first round, wasn't it? Within the first 30 seconds, it was
First 30 seconds, yeah.
Yeah, so sometimes these things happen. I'm not going to read too much into it. He dismantled Ian Lewison, regardless of whatever state he showed up in, Ian Lewison. But he did a good job on him for his first pro fight. You got to give him that, considering Dillian Whyte had him, what was it, 17th fight, 18th fight, and he had a bit of a tough time with him. Joe Joyce is a big, strong guy. He's got skill. He's got boxing, acumen. He knows what he's doing in the ring. I don't know if he can go that far. If I'm honest, I mean, what I mean by that is, I don't know if I'd put him up there with with people like Wilder and Joshua and throw him in there. Not now, obviously, further down the line. But I don't know if he can do anything against those guys, because he does seem a bit basic. With the certain things he does. Of course, he's going to be basic to an extent because that's how he's had to fight, isn't it? With the jab and then the straight right. But he does seem to just rely on those sort of punches a bit too much for me. Of course, yeah. From a technical point of view, if you throw him in with Chisora, he'll probably jab his head off all night. But Chisora's the type of guy, if he really shows up and puts it on him, he could probably stop him. But I'll probably go with Joyce to win if he was to fight him. I think the most realistic fight with a meaningful bout and a decent level guy would be Leroy Thomas. I don't think there's any reason why you shouldn't fight him, to be fair. He can get in there, he'd beat him as well. I don't think Thomas is big enough. I think Joyce is a big lad, strong lad. I think that would be exactly what David Haye wants to do. And David Haye's the master of this, manipulating, his record. David Haye fought a load of shit fighters throughout his career and got to where he got to. And I'm not like discrediting him. He's very clever the way he did it. He fought guys at a certain level at the right time, got his name out there. And he wants to do a similar thing with Joe Joyce and fight guys who I don't think anyone thinks Leroy Thomas is a top level heavyweight. He's just there. He's got the belt and that's it. And the belt's there for the picking, I think. And Joe Joyce can beat him.
He's skillful. I mean, that would be my concern, is with someone like Joyce, who's slightly slow of hand, I wonder if Lenroy might have slightly crisp. I don't think Lenroy would beat Joyce, but I think he might expose a lack of crispness in his work.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I could see where you're coming from. I don't doubt that at all. I think there's definitely potential for that. But I think Joyce would beat him. He'd probably grind him down and stop him. Because you got to bear in mind, he's a lot bigger than him as well. It's one of those things, isn't it? Where how big is'Joyce in terms of height? Is he what, 6'5"?
They say 6'6".
Yeah, so he's a big lad. He's a big lump, and he's a strong guy. I'm sure he hits hard enough to stop most heavyweights. And I'm sure if he really went for it, he'd stop him. You know what I mean? But I mean, in terms of the way that Hayes' mindset is and the way they're trying to build him, it would make sense to, I think, and I'm sure a lot of people would agree, to go after the Commonwealth title just to get a title on him and say, look, he won a title, in his fourth fight or whatever it is. Just to kind of add a bit more to his, his resume, and it's essentially get him into bigger fighters quickly. Quicker than Joshua, for example. Joshua won the Commonwealth title when he fought. Who did he fight? What was his name?
Cornish.
Gary Cornish. There we go. That was the fight before he fought Dillian Whyte. So that was his 14th or 15th fight. So if he can do it in 4 fights, David Haye's gonna use that as a caveat to sell him more on IFL. He's gonna say, oh look, Joe Joyce won the Commonwealth title in his 4th fight. Joshua won it in the 15th. He's going to compare. You can see it now. It's one of those things. That's what David Haye's looking to do. So at the end of the day, Joe Joyce has turned pro late. We all know that. So it is a battle against the clock to an extent as well, because there's only so much he can do in this time span. He's got to really go for it now while he can. And if that's the way they want to do it, by all means, I've got nothing but respect for that. But so I think realistically, Leroy Thomas would be the guy I'd probably aim to get a fight with and get that sorted. But Chisora fight would be a great fight as well, and I really think that would tell us a lot about Joyce's heart as well, because Chisora is a tough bastard, and when he's very stubborn, he'll go in there and he'll really make it tough for him, And again, it will tell us a lot about where Joyce is really at, because we saw what Chisora, as much as he's lost a lot of fights, we saw what he was capable to against Dillian Whyte. We saw he's still got a lot left in him in terms of the heart.
Been pretty much ruled out by Eddie Hearn.
Yeah. I saw the interview. He said it's pretty much been ruled out. But if they can make it happen, then by all means, I'd love to see it. But I know it's not realistic at this point. But if they could make it happen, then by all means, I think that would be a great, a test for Joyce, and we'll really see where he's at as well. And if they really want to prove that he's that good, then throw him in with Chisora. Chisora's not easy enough for anyone as far as I'm concerned.
Absolutely, appreciate that, Sherry. Let's bring in Irish Tom. Tom, How you doing?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear. Are you back with us in the sunny UK?
I am.
Fantastic. Well,
unfortunately.
Thank you very much for joining, given your travels. We've started by having a look back at the Quigg fight and then talking about some of the other things like the Joe Joyce fight. Have you caught up with all of these, Tom? And give us your take on anything that stood out.
Yeah, I saw the Quigg fight. It was Valdez is what we kind of think, a fella who's fairly interesting to watch, but kind of flawed. You know, definitely not the top of his division, but an interesting fighter. You know, he took a lot of punishment, you know, with a broken jaw for a good few rounds. So I didn't enjoy watching that fight, though. I don't like watching fighters when I think they're being injured, and I don't like somebody coming in way overweight and having an advantage. I thought Scott Quigg looked by far the bigger man in there. I don't think that fight should have gone ahead. Now look what it's done to Valdez. The Joe Joyce fight, so there's nothing to really say about that. I thought Matty Atkins looked fucking brilliant. Matty Atkins is a serious cruiserweight now.
He was talking about world title fights, Tom. Is that realistic?
Yeah, I don't see why not. Like, he went out and he went and fought Golovkin, and I think that was a points loss. Is that right?
I think Seri picked Golovkin to win. Yeah, no, Golovkin knocked him out, I think, Tom.
Oh, did he? But like, I think that was a massive step up. I think if he's progressed right again and not just thrown from, you know, sub-British level to like elite level or to top level, I think he could do it. He looks like he's a very improved fighter. He's excellent. What would he do to Isaac Chamberlain or Coley? He'd knock him. He'd spark him out. For me, he's the number one in Britain.
I think he made a good point, Tom, as well, which is that, let's say Usyk wins the tournament and goes up to heavyweight, there's going to be 4 vacant title fights. And, you know, a lot of the big names will be coming off losses. So potentially some more routes are going to open up for him. It's just whether he's got the backing, I guess.
Yeah, like I can see him definitely fighting and acquitting himself very well in a fight. And you know, if he gets his hands on a WBO title fight against somebody useless, you know, I can imagine he could take it easy enough. The fight I want to talk about is Mikey Garcia against Lipinets. Have you talked about that at all yet?
Not at all, mate. Remiss of me. Go ahead.
I watched, I don't know if Del Boy's in the chat. I listened to Del Boy's review of it and his channel. And I couldn't disagree with him. Huh?
Great channel.
Yeah, good channel. Yeah, one of my favorites. And I couldn't disagree with him with his review more. Normally I concur with his analysis. But he thought Mikey Garcia looked bad in it, and he thought he looked overrated. And I don't know. I thought Mikey was really good, and I thought Lipinets was way better than I expected. Lipinets is a decent fighter. Lipinets will give anybody at 140 a hard fight, and I thought Mikey won that fight 9-3, 8-4. He knocked him down as well, probably 8-3. You know, 116, 111, and Mikey was clearly the smaller man. You know, Mikey's not a light welterweight. Mikey should be down at lightweight. And I hope he's at lightweight, and the Super 6 is going to start. I'm pretty sure it looks like the lightweight's going to be one of the Super 6. So, you know, I think Mikey was excellent again. You know, he's just a very smooth, technically excellent fighter with good power. But his power doesn't, I suppose it does carry fairly well to 140, but he's not the devastating puncher he was at 135. But I thought that was excellent. What else was there on?
So now you mention it, there was the Ndongo Prograis fight.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
I didn't watch that either, mate. No.
Oh, Prograis is really good. Prograis beat the crap out of him. I think he knock him out in 2 rounds?
Did he? Okay.
Yeah, I think he knocked him down 5 times in one of the rounds. Prograis has got elite power. Prograis is not a bad boxer, but he's got quite some good defensive skills. But he is a proper elite puncher. he may be a top 10 pound for pound puncher. He really is an elite puncher. I think, like, Josh Taylor would have a very, very hard fight with Prograis. Prograis is a tough guy. Like, Prograis may turn out to be the best 140 fighter. The 140 division is kind of heating up a bit. Josh Taylor and Prograis, that would be some fight, man. Prograis to me is like probably the best kind of fighter that nobody knows about.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest, Tom. I've never seen him fight.
Yeah, there's 2 fights you want to watch. This is his last 2. He fought a 24-0 prospect in his last fight, and he knocked him out in 3 or 4 rounds. And the prospect was good. And then in this one, he just absolutely demolished Ngongo, I think in 2 rounds. So, yeah, he's excellent, And that 140 division is hotting up.
Interesting stuff. Okay. Didn't want to put a word in on my man Wadi Camacho, looking decent.
I didn't see it. Did his opponent's elbow slip out of place? Did it dislocate?
Mate, he put an absolute beating on Danny Cousins. It was horrible to watch. Like, it should have been stopped like 4 or 5 rounds earlier. It was really, really brutal. But he actually looked. It's probably the best I've seen him look, to be honest.
Yeah, I haven't seen Wadi Camacho look good in about 5 years.
Yeah, maybe he'll get a fight with a Coley. Wouldn't surprise me if that happens.
Yeah,
but we shall see. Cool, guys. Well, I'll move it on. Has anyone got anything more they would like to add on any of the boxing from previous weeks before we start discussing some of the news in the sport? Fantastic. In that case, Sherry, let me ask you this. Eddie Hearn, in his interview, I know you've seen the interview, alluded to the fact that it appears Tyson Fury will not be signing with Eddie Hearn and Matchroom. What's your reaction to this? Are you surprised? And how does that impact potential Anthony Joshua fight, mate?
I don't think I'm not surprised at all, to be honest, BG. I don't think it was ever a realistic prospect to sign with Matchroom. I think I would love for him to have done it simply because it makes the road to the Joshua fight a lot clearer, and we'll probably get it at a more probably a sooner date than we will. But at the same time, I appreciate Tyson's he's loyal to Hennessy and to Warren, isn't he? So he's probably going to go that route and go the BT Sport route. But personally, I think it's a bit of a silly move. I think it is kind of probably better for him to go with Sky because all the big fights are probably on that side, if that makes sense. But Fury needs to he needs to have a few lower level fights, and for whatever reason, Hearn says he can't put up the money for those fights. So whatever that meant, I'm not really sure. But I think he wants to get Fury into big fights, and if Fury is with him, people are going to demand the Joshua fight a lot quicker, aren't they? Which is one of those which I think Hearn knows that is one of those. It's a 2-pronged thing where if he has him, he's got arguably the 2 biggest named heavyweights in the world at the moment, and also he's got a fight there that is so big in terms of money that he can't put it off for too long without getting slaughtered by the public. So Hearn's got to play it clever on his part, but I'm sure he'd love to sign Fury, but you want to get him into probably a Joshua fight within 2 fights, not give him 3 low level fights. But I think Fury needs to take his time. There's no need to rush that. You know what I mean? As long as he comes back and we can see if he's still got it, and if he is serious about boxing now, he wants to keep his weight down and all that, then we will probably see a very good Tyson Fury for the next year or 2 or however long he decides to stay in the sport. But in terms of who he's going to go with, I think Frank Warren is probably the most realistic one. Do I think it's the best idea? Probably not from a financial and profile point of view, because I don't think BT Sport and Frank Warren are as reliable in terms of promotion and getting the names out there as much as Sky Sports, and I'm sure we can all agree with that. We've seen what Sky Sports is as a platform for fighters. I'm not saying every single fighter goes that way, but I'm saying for the big names, and Fury is a big name, there's no doubt about it. I think that they all belong on Sky Sports, personally speaking. But the Joshua fight is going to happen. It can't not happen, and it's only a matter of time for when it does happen, and they'll have to just figure it out depending on whatever Fury's contractual situation is. Of course, if he signs with Warren, he'll be on BT Sport, but it depends on the length of his contract and what sort of loopholes he'll have in there. At the end of the day, Fury's not an idiot as much as people would want to think he is. He's not an idiot. He knows to an extent how to play this game. And fingers crossed, if he is very serious about the Joshua fight and all the big fights, then he'll have one eye on that, and he'll have sort of a way to ensure that those fights do happen and are able to be made correctly. At the end of the day, I think people have said before, if HBO and Showtime can work together for other fights, then why can't BT and Sky Sports? So in that regard, it's true, if the fight is big enough and the money warrants it, then I'm sure they can do it. But I think from pay-per-view point of view, Sky Sports is the platform. There's not really, BT Sports hasn't got a track record or any sort of record at all out there at this point. So I think I don't think it's the best move for his profile, but I think it's probably the best move for his boxing career at this point, to stick with Frank, see how many fights he can get under his belt to get back to where he was, around the Klitschko fight or before the Klitschko fight. I mean, the last fight he had for Vladimir Klitschko was Christian Hamer, wasn't it? And that was a Frank Warren show at the O2 with Chudinov and Eubank.
Yeah, I believe that's correct. Yeah,
that was 3 years ago. 2 weeks ago. So I was there inside. So I'm saying that was 3 years ago. I remember that very clearly. And so I think he needs to go with Warren, get a few fights under his belt, and then leave his options open. I think Fury needs to realize, similarly the way that Huey and Peter are too loyal to Mick Hennessy. There's a level of loyalty you should have. At the end of the day, you want to make money in the sport as well, and you want to get the most bang for your buck. At the end of the day, your body, your facilities, your faculties, are what matter in this sport. So get as much money as you can. Loyalty within limits. If there's money to be made, and a lot more money is to be made on the Sky Sports side, then by all means keep your options open. Do 2 or 3 fights with Frank, and then if the big fights are calling, head over to Sky on a one fight contract or whatever it is, fight by fight contract, and then work it out from there, I think.
And Eddie Hearn implied that in his discussions with Tyson, they'd kind of fallen apart because of the suggestion that Tyson was going to come back and have 2 or 3 fights against extremely subpar opponents. Do you believe there's truth in that, or is it the case that Eddie Hearn realizes Tyson is going to go to the competition and has already begun the process of starting to diminish the return for competitor reasons?
Yeah, I think it's probably the latter a bit. You got to be honest. Hearn's got to play the game, hasn't he? A little bit, and try and how do you put it? Quash the return of Tyson Fury, because as much as Fury, he beat Klitschko. That was a long time ago now. He can't live off that win for the rest of his life. For us, yeah, we know, what that win meant at the time. But now it's been 2.5 years. We need to be a bit more realistic. So I think Hearn is probably knows he's not going to get him, and he has to kind of diffuse the situation a little bit, and not necessarily put him down, but just kind of throw something out there. I'm sure Fury's not an idiot. He knows he has to fight slightly less level opposition just to get back into the flow of things and see how he gets on. I'm not saying it's permissible for him to fight 3 total non-factors or not irrelevant fighters, but one low level fight I'm happy with, and then after that he needs to start working his way up the rankings. That's my opinion of Fury. That's what I think he's capable of. That's what I think he belongs. So one low level fight I'm happy with, and then go from there really. But that's my opinion of the situation.
Yeah, I mean, look, absolutely, we don't want to see him coming up against bums who he's going to knock out in 1 round. I guess you want to see him in against guys like, almost the guys he's been fighting prior to Klitschko, like the sort of Christian Hamers and Chisoras, the guys who aren't going to beat him, but the guys who are going to give him rounds and really let us establish where he's at, I guess.
100%, yeah. So even for him, if he was to fight Lenroy Thomas, I think we would pick Fury to beat him in his first fight, wouldn't we?
Yeah. I think that's a great shout. Limited danger there as well. Sexton for the British title, something like that.
Yeah, definitely. So we know he can beat these guys. That's what I'm saying. We know. Okay, we don't know. We believe very strongly that Fury is still that guy. And even if he's lost 10%, he still beats most of these guys comfortably. And that's not me being just a Fury fanboy. I mean, stylistically speaking, yes, he beats a lot of these heavyweights. Even with a 10% loss on what he was back then. But from the looks of things, the way he's looking, the way he's training, I think we're going to see a physically better looking Fury as well, potentially, in terms of weight and this aesthetic look of him. I know he's never going to be a guy looking like a Joshua or a Wilder in terms of his body and physique, but I'm sure we're going to see someone with Ben Davies who's focusing more on the actual fitness and his overall look as well. And his fitness has always been there, by the way. There's no doubting his fitness for a guy his size. And it's not always about the look. I'm just saying I think we'll see a bit of a change in his overall look and demeanour. And then I think it really is. It's about Tyson Fury 2.0 coming up now. We'll see how serious he is and how badly he wants to prove himself as the he keeps going about lineal champion. We'll see how serious he is about being recognized as the champion. And, he's got a top row at the top of this week. Once all the belts end up with either Joshua or Wilder, he's got a big
very distant there, mate. I'm afraid.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Pardon me, I was saying, so once the belts end up with either Joshua or Wilder at some point in the near future, he's got a very big hill to climb. So we've got to see just how badly he wants it, because those guys can whack. And I'm not saying Fury hasn't got a chin. I'm just saying those fights are going to be some real, brutal fights where he's going to have to take some big shots and walk through, hell to beat these guys. Everyone thinks it's going to be easy. We've got to be realistic, guys. I don't think any of those two fighters are going to be easy for him to beat. They're going to be difficult fights, competitive fights. But just based on boxing skill and movement, we kind of pick Fury and his slickness. But they're not going to be easy fights. So we've got to see where he's at and really hope that he's got something left.
100%. Let me bring in Jet. Jet, how you doing, mate?
Hello. Sorry I'm late.
No worries. Thanks for joining. How's life?
Same old, mate. Same old.
I'm just going to turn you up, Jet. Very, very clear, but slightly quieter. So just give me 2 ticks. I'm just going to turn you up. We've just been, I think you've been with us for the last 15 minutes or so. We've just been discussing the news that Tyson Fury, it doesn't appear, will be returning to the sport with Eddie Hearn by his side. What's your take on this, Jet, and how does it affect a future fight with AJ?
I think probably in terms of boxing and building up, probably a better move than going to Eddie. Eddie will probably throw him in with a couple of cans and knockover jobs, and Tyson Fury probably would knock him out, even though he's not really renowned for his power. That's how they kind of tend to do it over at Sky. They build up like a big name, and they give him a knockover job. So it's probably best that he goes to Frank. But then again, Frank, it's tough. It's tough. I'd say Frank's probably the better option for Tyson, but there isn't really too much in between him and Eddie Hearn. I wouldn't say there's a lot in between them. But I guess whoever makes him the most money, he's not a uneducated fella. He knows his way around, the politics side of boxing, and he knows whoever's going to make him the most money, get him in the best position to make that money, is gonna do him well in the short, medium, and long run. So he's probably done that in time with Frank, and best of luck to him. Really, to be honest, it's a good move. Another big name for BT Sport and Box Nation. Obviously, Billy Joe, his fights got postponed to June 23rd, I think, against Martin Murray. He's one of the bigger names over there. Terry Flanagan, who's supposed to be somewhat a big name, who no one gives a fuck about. He's over there, but they have some good guys. Obviously, Anthony Yarde, Daniel Dubois. They have guys coming through, and Tyson Fury is a welcome addition to the Box Nation and BT stable.
100%. I mean, we assume it's Frank Warren and BT on the basis he won't be signing with Eddie Hearn. Is there any chance he could do something different, Jet? I mean, maybe do something with an American-based promoter, or are we pretty certain that it's going to be Frank?
To be honest, I'd probably think it'd be Frank. I'd go on a limb and say it'd be Frank, only because he was with him prior to his sort of retirement, semi-retirement, whatever you want to call it, and his drugs thing and whatnot. So I'd assume it'd be Frank, but I wouldn't be surprised if he does. If he had someone who was going to back him, maybe like a Cyclone that kind of co-promoted him or something like that. That would be interesting if they could do it, but I don't think that would be the way that Tyson Fury and sort of Fury, like the promotional side of Fury, will go to. I'll be honest, I'd like to see him on maybe Showtime or something like that. They'd always be interested, I think, in him now that he got that big win over Vladimir Klitschko obviously a few years ago now, but he was promoting the fight against Wilder when he got in the ring and chucked his blazer on, all over the ring and stuff like that. So I would like to see him on Showtime if that was an option. That'd be cool, but I'd assume the smart money will be on him remaining in the UK and staying with Frank Warren.
Understood. Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. And in terms of comeback opponents, obviously it's been a long time out of the ring. What sort of level do you think is realistic for the comeback?
I'd say like someone like a fringe world level. You got you got those guys like Shannon Briggs. I know he was being linked with a fight with him. He's only dangerous for a few rounds, but he'd probably take Tyson Fury some rounds. Guys that would take him rounds, like Rudenko and maybe Dimitrenko, someone like Ustinov. I know he was going to fight Ustinov back in the day, but a guy maybe that would just give him some rounds, who's fairly durable. Manuel Charr, I think holds that WBA regular belt or something like that. He would be a good opponent. I think he'd have way too much of Manuel Charr, even at being about 80-odd%. He's probably not going to be the same exact fighter he was against Vlad in his first comeback fight, but he'd still have more than enough to beat someone like a Manuel Charr or someone like that. So someone who's just fairly durable, you know what I mean? Someone will take him rounds, and someone who just who actually provides very little in terms of attacking Arsenal, but just defensively they're there to be hit. He gets him some rounds under the belt and gets some rust shaken off.
100%. Okay. Jet, I appreciate you only joined after we've started. So just before we move on, just wanted to check whether you had anything to add on any of the boxing that has happened previously that we haven't covered on the pod, be it Quigg, be it Joe Joyce, be it Prograis, be it any of the other guys.
Prograis, I saw him. He got a knockout over Ndongo, was it? He won the WBC interim. And Jose Ramirez won the full WBC belt against Amir Imam, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Ramirez versus Imam wasn't a bad fight. It was actually pretty decent. Imam done some good work. I just felt like he couldn't keep up with the work rate of Ramirez. I did see a tweet, and I was going to say this anyway on the pod. I think Josh Taylor is probably the best at 140. I'm going to stick my neck out on the line and say Josh Taylor is the best, but he'll have great fights with Prograis and Ramirez. Those are fantastic fights if they get made. Really, really solid fights. So that's there's some good fights to be made in the 140-pound division as well. So hopefully they get made sooner rather than later. Quigg Valdez, bit of a war. Valdez showed frailties, but he showed some very good boxing skills at the same time. Quigg showed he's got the heart of a lion. He's tough as nails, and he took some big shots from Oscar Valdez, and he dished some out as well. So he can come again. He's still young. Whether or not he beats any of the guys at at the top at 126 at featherweight, that's another story. But he's definitely in the mix. You got to give him that he's in the mix, and the weight situation. Hopefully he sorts that out, because that did seem very unprofessional. And Joe Joyce, Donnie Palmer is a goat. So yeah, the word to Joe Joyce. But I heard he might be fighting Chisora or something like that on the.
The Chisora fight's been ruled out.
Oh, okay. Because I saw you make a video about it, so I didn't know if it was going ahead or not.
Yeah, brilliant timing from me. I made a video on it, and the next day it got ruled out by the promoter.
Great. Typical David Hay doesn't want to sink into his broke pockets and pay Chisora. That's what it is. Yeah, but that would have been a fairly decent fight, feeling disengaged to see where Joyce is at. But Joyce looks slow, man. I'll be honest. You might as well watch paint fucking dry on the wall, man. He's painfully slow. And this Donnie Palmer looked, mate, he looked like a kebab man. Like, you get them kebab guys in the shop serving you Turkish food's finest. That's how he looked, man. That was awful. That was a shit show of a fight, and David Hay should actually be embarrassed promoting that, because they brought him over to be this 8-1 guy who's going to trouble Joe Joyce and going to take him rounds. He's going to hit Joyce on the chin and try and knock him out. What does he do? He balls over in about 30, 40 seconds. Embarrassing, man. Embarrassing.
Yeah, and it doesn't help anyone, really. It gets another knockout on Joyce's record, but, it doesn't really give him experience or increases
He's not
rate.
he's not really like a charismatic guy, or he's not like a not an interesting personality. He's very bland. He's very, to himself, which is fair play, but it doesn't go on the ratings. Let's put it that way. And if David Haye's putting on shows like this where he just knocks over cans in 1-2 rounds, it's not really benefiting Joe Joyce, and if anything, it's doing a detriment to him.
Agree. All right, cheers, Jack. Jay, let me bring you back in, mate. I wanted to ask you about the big news about Lomachenko Linares. Couldn't let this one slip under the radar. Huge fight, mate.
Yeah, massive fight. A massive fight. Linares, we know a lot about him because he's visited our shores a few times. Class boxer, really good, great technique. But there's holes there. There's definite holes there. He's a top-end fighter. But for me, Lomachenko beats him, all day, every day. I don't see... every time he fights someone, Lomachenko, I don't see who's going to beat him. I've not seen any holes yet. And that's the thing. I've seen holes in Linares, and I do feel that it's a massive fight. It's a fight that fair play for Linares to take, because there's probably a lot of people that don't want to fight Lomachenko. But Lomachenko is, again, and I keep saying it, is a different gravy, totally elite. And I think he deals with Linares quite successfully. They'll obviously might give him a few problems because Linares is good. But for me, yeah, Lomachenko, and that's the fight Lomachenko needs. That's the fights he wants. I mean, he's the one fighter in the world that you can honestly say that will fight the best and wants to fight the best and genuinely does, because he's got so much supreme confidence in his own ability. And we see it from the outside whenever he gets in the ring and whenever he's interviewed or whenever we see training footage, that that man doesn't fear anyone. So you've got to give a bit of respect to Linares for taking that fight.
Yeah, definitely. It's a huge fight. Look, I know Linares is not like a mega puncher. I know he's not the kind of guy who's going to bring a big man style. Is there a risk of an upset just that Lomachenko's moving through these weight divisions and he's probably fighting the best guy he's fought in his career to date, and it's a guy in a new weight division which is going to be substantially bigger than him?
No.
Word
to that. It's like Lomachenko is a Mikey Garcia. I mean, Irish Tom talks about Mikey Garcia earlier on. Just a different class of fighter, just an elite fighter, just so good. And, I pretty much, bar with Salido, isn't it? Bar he was his second fight. Bar that performance, I defy anyone to show me where the gaps are, to show me where the weaknesses are, to show me, it's all right that, it's a higher division and has he got the power to knock Lomachenko out? It's one saying, one thing saying it, it's one thing, it's another thing doing it. You've got to catch him first, and you don't catch him. He's very, very, very difficult to catch because of his supreme technique that he has. So I honestly cannot see anything else but a Lomachenko win.
Yeah. I think he's certainly going to be a substantial favourite. Lomachenko, is he? I appreciate he turned pro relatively late, but the resume he's building, is this a resume that could trouble some of the greats?
I think it's too early to say yet, to be honest. I think we discussed. I remember I brought up a question, and I said, if Lomachenko retired after 15, 16 fights, would he go down as one of the all-time greats after such a short period of time? Yeah. It's all dependent on the fights that he has. He obviously wants to be an all-time great, and he has the ability to be an all-time great, but it's down to his, it's not, you will never question his skill level. You'll never question his technique. You'll never question, anything that he actually, the attributes that he has. The only thing you will question, and what tends to happen in time and over boxing history, we always revert back to, when comparing fighters, we always revert back to resume. And that's what it's purely going to come down to. We talk about, you've done videos about Mike Tyson, for instance. We see what we remember when he was devastating, but then we go back and we start to weed through the fighters that he fought up to him winning his first championship. So I think that's what it's going to come down to, and I don't think it'll be a lack of trying from his side. It'll be the lack of people wanting to get into the ring with him. You know, I think that's what. Although he's not a massive puncher as such, so that can help because then people will just want to be the person to unravel the mystery and the magic code to beat Lomachenko. So, you know, everyone wants to test himself. I think Terry Flanagan wants to fight him, doesn't he? You know what I mean? And he probably would because they're just. It's a bit like Golovkin. People will challenge themselves against them possibly because they want to be the person to beat them. Because if they beat them, they become number one. Then, don't they? They will be seen as the man that beat the man.
100%. Yeah, I totally agree. He's kind of got that sort of aura about him that beating him. You know, if Terry Flanagan went and beat Lomachenko, you know, he'd be a rich man and he'd be talked about as a pound for pound number one. So, you know, I guess these are all things that will play into a fighter's mind.
But unfortunately, though, Tom, in the world we live in, if Flanagan did beat him, we would all say he wasn't that good in the first place. That's what everyone would say. He's not that good. We wouldn't say Terry Flanagan's amazing. We'll just say Lomachenko was at the wrong way, or, you know, he shouldn't have moved up, or he wasn't that good anyway, and he was on, you know, all these things, you know, but you do get these fighters like a Golovkin, you know, like a Mayweather. I mean, people who fought Mayweather at any one point over the last so many years, whoever fought Mayweather, did we think they would actually beat them? We'd watch it in the hope that they would beat them. And the people that were fighting him would wanted to be the person to take that away from him. So, you know, he's going to have that aura about him. But honestly, I look around in those divisions above, same division below, and I don't see who can unlock that code.
Absolutely. When we're reacting to news, Jay, I see that Billy Joe Saunders, Martin Murray off. Billy Joe Saunders sustained a hand injury. Disappointing news.
Very disappointing. It's not a great fight in the first place, I didn't think so. But it was a fight almost to keep... It's a fight to keep Billy Joe active, isn't it? And keep him focused and prepared for that possible fight against Triple G or Canelo. So it's quite sad in that sense. You see... you saw Billy Joe Saunders against Lemieux, and you wanted to see more of him. We want to see more of him. We can't get enough of him at the moment, and we want to see if he can do it again, regardless really of the opponent. Funnily enough, he's one of those fighters at this point that he's put on such a massive performance in his last fight that he's got the luxury of almost cherry picking who he wants to pick, and really no one's sort of complaining because we sort of really like him now, and we really want to see him him in action. So it's very disappointing. The key factor is, can he keep focused through this injury? Because it is, what is it going to be, June now? Is it, they say June?
I'm guessing.
Yeah, so that's quite a way away, and it's keeping him focused and keeping him, you know, on the ball and in top shape, because we know what happens when Billy Joe Saunders loses focus or stays out of the gym. You see what happens, and that is a quite lengthy period of time to tick over and then go back into a training camp again after an injury, hoping that he won't put on too much weight, etc., etc. So it's, for him, as far as Canelo and Triple G, I don't think it really makes a lot of difference. It's more about him personally, and if he can keep up that level of fitness and conditioning that we know he needs for him to perform at his best.
Totally agree. Let's throw that one open to the panel. So to Jet and also to Sherry, any of you got any comments on Linares, Lomachenko, or also the Billy Joe Saunders Murray news? Linares, Lomachenko, particularly quite an exciting prospect, I think.
That's an amazing fight, mate. That's a quality fight.
How do you see it?
Sorry?
How do you see it breaking down?
I'll be honest, I probably see it breaking down. Lomachenko will probably be, a high pressure fighter, high volume. Even though he doesn't kind of fight like a pressure fighter, he he just comes with really high output and ridiculous angles. It's really tough to like fight against. Linares is kind of the I wouldn't say ABC boxer because he is slightly unorthodox at times, but he's more of the boxer's boxer. He'll use his long reach from range and try and box and try and move, but he does get caught. He is known to be slightly chinny, so the way I see it is probably he's going to try and box from range, try and move on the back foot, and Lomachenko will cut the ring off and try and throw loads of punches and bunches and really put the pressure on, very 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 educated pressure, and I'll be honest, I see it ending in a Lomachenko stoppage. I'll stick my neck out on the line and say Lomachenko stoppage there, because I think Linares has a tendency to get caught, a bit too often, and he lost multiple rounds to Anthony Crolla in the first fight at least. So I know styles make fights, but Lomachenko is a completely different animal to Anthony Crolla. Let's put it that way. So Lomachenko by stoppage, but I'd say that's kind of how the fight breaks down. Lomachenko cutting the ring off, trying to be for punches and bunches, and Linares trying to box on the back foot, occasionally stepping inside to engage in a bit of a shootout.
Interesting stuff. Sorry, do you give Linares more of a shout? Jay and Jet both seem to be quite firm in who they're siding with on this one.
No, I'm in agreement with them. It's not a matter of Linares being a bad fighter. Just Lomachenko is just so good.
Yeah.
And it sounds, it sounds silly or however it sounds, but he's that good. And I'm not taking the piss of that. Jay went on a bit of a passionate, not rant as such, but he went on a passionate tirade about how good Lomachenko is, and I have to agree with him. I've always respected how good he is, but I wasn't that much of a fan of him, as bad as that sounds. But the guy is just too good. He's literally too good. I don't think the size disparity is enough for Linares for it to be that much of a fight where he can win, if that makes sense. Salido was so big and so overweight in that fight, and he put it on him, and even then it was a competitive fight, and he just about squeaked to win. Linares isn't that type of fighter. He's gonna try and box off him. He's technical. He's gonna try and land a big punch on him to hurt him. Lomachenko's not gonna let that happen. He's gonna counter him all night and dance around him, and it's gonna be a pretty one-sided fight. I don't think Linares will quit, but I suppose I never thought Rigondeaux would quit either, but I don't think Linares will let that happen. I think he's got a bit more pride. But again, I don't think we can say that with any certainty now, can we? He's on a roll of making 2 or 3 fighters quit. But Linares has been obviously, on a bit of a high in the last 2 or 3 years, and a resurgence, hasn't he? With world titles and stuff, and he's the Ring Magazine champion as well. So he's going to be putting it all on the line. So I'm pretty sure Linares will go out there and give it his all. But if we're honest, lads, I don't think Linares is all, shall we say, is anywhere near enough to be a special fighter like Lomachenko. I've never seen anything like him. He's completely unique. I don't think we'll ever see anything like him after him either. If I'm quite honest, I think he's just a complete one-off. And yeah, so I think Lomachenko will win, by decision. I don't think he'll stop him. But I think Linares will be game, and it'll be in there. But I don't think he has a very realistic chance of winning at all, if I'm honest with you. And that is a massive compliment to Lomachenko, because I don't think any of us will say that Linares doesn't have a chance to win against anyone else in and around his division. I think we'd all say he's a very live fighter in a lot of those fights, but the only guy I don't see him having any chance of beating is Lomachenko.
Absolutely. And that is obviously testament to to the reputation that he's building for himself. Definitely.
That's exactly.
What about Saddam Ali, Liam Smith, sorry?
Yeah, of course, mate. I mean, I put a tweet out and I got like, I think 13 or 14 retweets, which I didn't expect. I was like, okay, that's a big result. I just put a casual tweet out saying I hope Saddam Ali beats Liam Smith, not because nothing to do with Saddam Ali being I just want to clarify, because he's a Muslim or anything like that. It was just simply put out there as Liam Smith lost to Canelo. He fought Liam Williams twice with one controversial, fight, the first one. And the second fight, he won fairly clearly, I think. How does that then put him in mandatory spot, for me? But the WBO is a barring any real insult, they are a very shit organisation when it comes to their rankings, and they do have a bit of a ridiculous ranking system. But so do they all, by the way. I'm not giving anyone any preferential treatment here, but the WBO do have some ridiculous fighters in their rankings, and I've seen some silly shit from them recently, which just shocks me. But I don't think Liam Smith should be the mandatory. But you know what? The reality is this. Liam Smith fought Canelo. He put up a solid performance. He ran out on his shield, so I've got to give him respect for that. I just don't think he should be the mandatory fighter for the mandatory challenger, in that fight. And I also believe Saddam Ali at the end of the day is not a 154 pounder by any means. He's a 147 guy who got given who was technically picked as a cherry pick. He capitalized on his golden ticket, and he's earned the title, and you can't really argue with that. So he's earned the title. He beat Kato clearly as well. Clear 7-5 minimum kind of thing. He won the fight. And personally, I think he's too fast and too slick. I'm not saying he's overly slick, but I think he's too fast and a bit too good for Liam Smith. But Liam Smith also has the opportunity to kind of use his size advantage. He's a big guy and grind him down. So it'll be one or two ways, I think. But either way, I think it'll be a competitive fight. But I think and I hope Saddam Ali wins, because I don't think Liam Smith really has earned this shot. But as a Brit, of course, I want to see him do well. I don't want to see him just totally get outboxed. But personally, I'm siding with Saddam Ali. I'd like to see him, at least get one decent defense of his title before losing it to someone, or getting, having to, vacate it kind of thing or whatnot. But I hope he beats Liam Smith personally. I don't know about anyone else.
Yeah. Anyone else want to jump in on that one?
I think the issue with Liam Smith, he just seems like when he talks, he seems like he has this divine right to be a world champion. And I don't know where he gets it from. I think Sherry's bang on. Who is he beating? He's nothing special. He's a Joe Gallagher fighter. And it's just this, so he didn't want to go over and fight on the undercard in Vegas, did he? Because the money was not right for such a big fight, etc., etc. He just seems like he has this. He's a typical Smith brother. Well, he's very much like Paul. I think Callum's the same, but the other one, he's just like this divine right that he thinks he should be a world champion and that he's some sort of elite fighter, which he isn't. He isn't. And I'm with Sherry, and I hope he gets beaten. That's all I've got to say about that.
He seems to be a bit of an unpopular figure, Liam Smith, in
aren't they? None of them. Just I don't know. It's just this arrogance that he has about him that he just and I don't know where he gets it from. I don't know what makes him think that he can, be a world champion, or just like guaranteed to be a world champion, that he's that good, because he isn't. He's average.
Yeah, I get where you come from, Jay. I mean, it's not necessarily that I dislike him. I don't even dislike him necessarily. It's not that. It's just, like you said, he's got this sort of like a sense of entitlement kind of thing to that title.
Yeah.
He won it as a vacant title, first of all. Let's remember that. He defended it against a shit fighter, and then he won the lottery with Canelo. Canelo picked him as a cherry pick as well. Let's bear that in mind. Just to kind of, just to validate his drop down from 155 to 154 that year, to kind of prolong the Golovkin fight and all that rubbish, all the politics that are involved in the sport. But like I said, the only reason we've even had a Smith brother hold a title because he fought for that vacant title through Frank. If Liam Smith was with Hearn, do you think he would have got a world title? No chance, because Hearn's fighters very rarely fight for a WBO belt, and they weren't going to pick up a Liam Smith against a Jarrett Hurd or a Charlo or whoever else. I mean, it's not going to happen, and he's a very weak world champion in that division, similar to Saddam Ali at this point, unless Saddam Ali, goes on some mad run, which I don't think would happen. But I think he's capable, from a boxing point of view, of outboxing a very basic fighter like Liam Smith. There's nothing special about him, and let's be fair, he's the only brother who's won a world title because, like we just said, it was a vacant title. Callum Smith's not going to beat George Groves. He's not winning a world title. He's nowhere near as good as what was initially touted. Paul Smith's not going to win a world title. Make whatever jokes you like about that.
Callum Smith is shit.
So it is what it is, They're not that good. That's just the reality. They're warriors, and fair play to them. They can knock the shit out of me collectively, all four of them. But I'm not a fighter, so But they are warriors, and respect to them for going through what they go through. But they're not going to win world titles, any of them outside of Liam.
Yeah. Speaking of the British scene, John Ryder versus Jamie Cox has been made for the Hey Bellew undercard, I believe. I actually really like that fight. Am I the only one?
That's a really solid fight. Really, really solid fight.
I can't pick a winner, Jet.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I think it's 50-50. John Ryder's looked really good in those last few fights at super middle, hasn't he?
Yeah.
So, Jamie Cox didn't look half bad against George Groves. I'm not saying he's world level or anything like that, but he looked pretty decent. So,
But this is a level that Cox should be fighting at.
yeah, but I felt he should be fighting at that level for a good while.
Yeah,
not just jump straight in with George Groves. Obviously, he got the opportunity, he got a good payday out of the World Boxing Super Series, but he should have been boxing at that level for a while anyway. He was knocking over can jobs when he was at 160, and he went straight in almost at the deep end against George Groves. So obviously he had 1-2 fights before, but you know what I mean. Hopefully, hopefully this. I know people are saying, "Oh, Jamie Cox is a beast in the gym and he's knocking people out and that sort of stuff." So hopefully this is a platform for him to show that, on the big stage. But it's a close fight. I think it's a lot closer than people are giving it credit for.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, John Ryder, like I said, he's been on a bit of a run recently, hasn't he? In his fights, he's had some highlights.
Yeah, he got that. He got that big KO out in. He got that big KO out. I don't know where it was, but he got a big KO win. So
it was the undercard of the Cox and Groves, wasn't it?
Yeah, was it that fight? Yeah,
he was
somewhere abroad. I know
sure it was.
But he also had a good scrap against Rocky Fielding. I actually felt he won that fight against Rocky Fielding. So again for the British title. So he has had some really good performances. I think obviously the weight must have affected him on 160. So hopefully, he gets a chance to shine on this card as well. So it's a good fight. Really, really solid scrap.
Personally, I'll be honest. I know Jamie Cox is not a 168 fighter and he shouldn't be fighting at 168 if I'm honest. But I'm going to lean towards him. I know it was only 4 rounds in the Groves fight, but I really like what I saw. The guy's got some balls and he's got some tenacity and he goes for it. So I'd really like to see what he can do at this sort of level. Personally, I'd like for him to win, if I'm honest with you. John Ryder's a tough guy and he's been around that level for a long time. This would be a real test for him. But I'd like to see Jamie Cox beat him and kick on from there, really.
Yeah, I think the winner of this goes on to really good things. Whereas obviously the loser probably stays in that British title scene, which, is busy enough at the minute anyway. But big things definitely there for the winner. Guys, just as I'm going through the agenda, has anyone got anything more to say on any of those news topics, or shall we move it forward to next week's boxing?
A quick one. Did you see Jamie McDonald get? He got a world title fight out in Japan.
Yeah.
So, I thought that was a good fight. I think that's a really good fight, actually. Inouye's obviously moving up.
We mentioned that in passing one of the recent podcasts. Jet, you know far more about this than any of us. What's your? I did say I don't think Jamie McDonald is without a chance in that fight.
Do you know what? I think obviously he fought, was it Tomoki Kameda for the WBA, or he was supposed to fight for the WBO and WBA regular, but then obviously something happened and he fought for one belt. He done a real number on Kameda. So I'm not saying Inoue is the same fighter Kameda is, because I think Inoue is a far, far, far better fighter than him. But I think, Jamie McDonald goes into that fight, he bites down on the gum shield, he has some solid fundamentals, and he's actually one of the more underrated guys in Britain. I know he had a bit of a dodgy decision against Liborio Solis. He probably should have lost that fight. And obviously in the rematch, the headbutt and that sort of stuff. He's got a big fight. The only problem I fear in this fight is he might feel the weight a bit. Inoue is a dangerous body puncher, and I think he's going to catch him early. He's going to catch him hard, and I think he might wear him down later down the stretch. McDonald's a tough guy, but I think Inoue is a bit of a beast in there. If McDonald can just keep working behind the jab, he's got a piston-like jab. If he can work behind the jab and keep Inoue at bay, then maybe possible. But Inouye's footwork is very, very good. There's actually a couple of videos that done the rounds on social media quite a while ago. It was showing Inouye's footwork, and it's amazing. It's really, really good. So I'd advise you guys to check that out if you ever have any spare time. But I think McDonald is in there with somewhat a shout, but it's going to be tough out in Japan. Obviously the judges, the crowd, everything kind of against him. Does seem like Eddie's kind of just throwing him to the wolves because it's towards the latter end of his career, and he's probably moving up to super bantam or featherweight. He's been talking about recently. So he's probably got this last big fight at 118 pounds to try and just, you know, do what he can, make as much money as possible. He's probably not making that much money from this fight. It's going on away day. But yeah, it's probably just like a showcase, just to get his name out there, saying he's been in there with Anui, he took him X amount of rounds or something like that. But yeah, that is a good fight. I'm actually looking forward to that fight. It's at the end of May, I think, something like that.
Yeah. I you know, I could see me getting into that one by the time it comes round. I've always somewhat enjoyed the McDonald's, and yeah, recently Gavin.
He's definitely better than Gavin, I think.
Yeah, Gavin made a fan of me again with that Gamaliel 5 fight, but as you say, Jamie's the better of the two by a good margin. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that one, definitely. Good stuff, guys. Let's move it on to what is probably the main topic of the night, which is of course Lucas Browne versus Dillian Whyte. Jay, let's start with you, mate. Are you buzzing for this one as the hype start to build in this week?
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's a decent fight for the level that it's at. There's quite a little bit on the line for whoever wins it. I think I like Lucas Browne. I think he's quite a nice fella. The gloves are off. Was really good. Was better than Joshua Parker for sure. Dillian Whyte's a complete wind-up merchant. You know, he plays the game so well when it comes to, you know, trash talk and to hype a fight, and he's just very good at it, and he's got it down. Lucas Browne's very calm, collected. We'll discuss the. Are we going to discuss the sit down? The gloves are off.
Yeah, let's do it, mate. Yeah.
So I watched your video about it, as I watch all your videos because I'm a proper fanboy. But
what I like to hear, mate. Check us in the post. I'm sure you hit the thumbs up button and subscribe every time.
Always.
There's only one BG, boys.
I get those ringtones on my phone every time something comes up. But when you talked about Lucas Browne's size, but bearing in mind it was, you know, before quite a few weeks off before the actual event itself, but he looked big. He looked really big. Like, I didn't realise how big he could actually be. I know it's the camera angle, the way he's sitting, perhaps the T-shirt that he's wearing, but he looked really big, which concerns me desperately. You'd think for someone that's been not fought for such a long time, but knowing a fight was coming up, because he obviously knew that it was either this fight or a Parker fight that could possibly come up, he would be in tip-top shape. This thing about, you know, he's happy at the weight he was or that he is, I'm not so sure. Even in the open workout I watched yesterday, he looked big around the middle. Hopefully he's not well, by the look at his size, he must be banking on a big punch and knockout, because I don't know how he can do a Chagiev against Dillian Whyte in that sort of shape. But at the same time, I've watched a lot of his fights and always quite enjoyed watching him. He comes to have a go. He comes to have a brawl. Dillian Whyte has, again, something else to prove. You know, how good is Dillian Whyte? Is he elite? No. Is he above British level? Just, you know, so there's a lot of questions to be answered. And as I said, a lot on the line. I'm interested to see how it plays out, you know, and I think of a lot of people over the consensus, it's either going to be really shit or it's going to be really good. I don't think there's going to be any middle ground with this one.
I could see it being quite cagey, you know.
I think Dillian Whyte will be very wary of that punch, that big knockout punch, and I think at the same time Lucas Browne knows it's such a massive opportunity that he really needs to fight the right fight. You know, he has to be very, very wary of Dillian Whyte, because we know Lucas Browne can be put on his arse, but at the same time we know he can bang a little bit. So I like his story. I really like you know, his honesty and his story. You know, coming to boxing so late and just picking it up. I mean, it's quite remarkable, really, when you think about it. Was he 30 years old when
That's what he said? Yeah.
I mean, that is it's astounding, really. You know, you've got to give the man so much credit to basically come into boxing at that age. So that's 8 years ago. To learn fundamentals straight off is never easy, as you can see with like Chris Eubank Jr., for instance. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
To learn those fundamentals is very tough. To go in at heavyweight again is tough. He's obviously a big lump, but bearing in mind he wins this, I wouldn't be surprised if he fights Deontay Wilder next. You know, and that is massive. You know, that's the potential of being. He was, you know, seen as a world heavyweight champion, but like even more so if he got the WBC strap. I'm not saying that could actually happen, but it's a distinct possibility. So it's a remarkable story from Lucas Browne.
It is, and he does come across very, very likable. I mean, I always enjoy watching Dillian Whyte. I know Dillian Whyte plays he plays a certain act, but for me, it is an entertaining act, and you know they are more entertaining. They are a more entertaining couple, if you like, than Joshua and Parker in terms of the build-up. Well,
Dillian Whyte has sort of been forced into play that role because he didn't have, you know, his big break was the Joshua fight, wasn't it? You know, before then, he wasn't really getting the breaks, was he? He didn't really have the big backing of a big promoter of Sky Sports behind him. So he's got to bring something else to the table. And when you're on the same stable and in the same country as Anthony Joshua, you've got to do something a little bit different. He can't be another Anthony Joshua. You know, there's only one Anthony Joshua with his humble, nice, you know, respectable, you know, guy that's loved by everyone. And, you know, he can't sort of compete with that. So he's got to play the villain, hasn't he, at the end of the day. And he does it very well. And he knows he has to do it. So, you know, I think ideally, Sky will want Dillian Whyte to win, because I think their ultimate dream, well, in two ways it works out for them. If Dillian Whyte wins, he fights Deontay Wilder. If he beats Deontay Wilder, you imagine how big the Joshua Whyte fight would be. It'd be easy to make. It'd be absolutely huge. It'd be two matchroom fighters, two Sky fighters. You know, it's phenomenal. I'm not saying Deontay Wilder of Joshua is not a massive fight, because it is, but that all British heavyweight unification fight would be huge, absolutely huge. Plus there's a history, plus there's a previous fight to go back on. You know, it would be mega. So they will definitely want him to win. But, you know, Lucas Browne is here to do the upset.
Definitely.
And many people are picking Lucas Browne to win this. Many people.
The Lucas Browne who fought Ruslan Chagayev probably deserves to be a substantial favourite over Dillian Whyte, in my humble opinion.
Yeah.
But that isn't really the question for me. The question is that Lucas Browne a fighter we'll ever see again, bearing in mind the age, bearing in mind the weight, bearing in mind the inactivity, bearing in mind the controversy.
And bearing in mind, we've only ever seen Lucas Browne like that once.
Exactly.
That's not a consistent thing. If you saw him in Wolverhampton against Rodenko, you know, that's not the same fighter. He was light on his feet. He moved a lot. He got put on his ass, got back up, showed great heart, great discipline. You know, that probably was his perfect performance that he could produce, and he's got to do it again. And I just honestly, I can't see it. I just can't see it. I don't think Dillian Whyte is anything special or anything, and even that much better than Lucas Browne. But I just think he'll get the nod really when it comes down to it.
Yeah. So are you thinking that it may go the distance, Jay?
I think it will. I think it will go the distance. I think they're both tough. There's one thing you can say about both of them. They are very tough. Dillian Whyte is a tough kid. Lucas Browne is a tough man. So I think it could, even though Lucas Browne says he doesn't want to go to points because he doesn't trust points. And I wouldn't, to be honest. If I was coming on a Matchroom show to Sky Sports, to England, to one of the big names on in the stable, on the roster, I'd be very wary of getting that points decision. He would have to box his brains out, you know, dance around him and do something very special to him. But I think it will go to points.
And you're siding with Dillian Whyte in a sort of competitive fight where,
yeah,
yeah,
I just don't think there's a great deal in it, and I think either one of them, once they step up to a Joshua, Fury, Wilder, I think they'd get dramatically found out.
Yeah, I think there's we very much got the elite in the heavyweight division, and then we've got the level below. And for me, these are good fighters, but they represent the level below. And there is a gap there.
Well, if you put Huey Fury against both of them, who wins that? For me, Huey. He beats both of them quite easily. Can box them, and I think anyone that can box Dillian Whyte will win. And if as he said, if Lucas Browne's not in tip-top shape, which he doesn't look in tip-top shape, he's not going to be able to produce the kind of performance he did in Russia.
Yeah. And even if he is, I'm still dubious, to be honest. But looking at him from the gloves are off, it's unlikely he's going to be in tip-top shape. But no, Jay, appreciate that, mate. Very, very sound logic there. Let me bring in Jet next. Jet, give us your breakdown on this fight.
The Lucas Browne versus Dillian Whyte fight?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I think, you know what? I'm going to reserve judgment till the weigh-in. I think the weigh-in's obviously Friday. So I'll reserve judgment until then. But Lucas Browne, I think even on the pads, I saw a pad workout, and he didn't look great. I'll be honest. He looked a bit, a bit slow, a bit plodding. So I guess we'll see what his weight is. If he's a similar weight to Shagiev, obviously in the gloves are off. I watched that one. He said he was about 10 kilos or something like that heavier. So that's obviously a big difference. And Dillian Whyte, he did look slightly slimmer. Obviously, he's never going to be a Anthony Joshua or a Joseph Parker, someone who's completely ripped. But he has got slimmer and slimmer in his last few fights. Obviously, similar sort of weight, but he does look physically trimmer. So he definitely looks the slight favourite only due to just the weight and that sort of stuff. I think if we were to do the 12 rounds a bit better, Lucas Browne might be looking for that big one punch. So if Lucas Browne comes in, obviously depending on the weight, if Lucas Browne comes in a bit light, I'd give him the edge. If not, I'd expect Dillian Whyte to kind of win the fight and probably get more rounds on the scorecard than he may expect due to the hometown judging. But yeah, if I had to pick someone, I'd like to pick Lucas Browne to win the fight, just because obviously he comes across as a somewhat decent guy. I know Dillian Whyte is an entertainer. Let's put it that way. He whether you like him or hate him, he entertains. So comes across as he plays the heel character very well. But Lucas Browne obviously is kind of a nice guy in this one. I'd just like to see him win because, he's probably had like a stop-start and is towards the end of his career trying to make him money and make himself some money and stuff like that. Obviously, I know he's had a few scandals, but not everything is what it seems, I guess, in the news and that sort of stuff. So, but both the guys have had their scandals, actually. So, yeah. So not the best look for Eddie Hearn, who says he's not going to promote any drug cheats on his shows. So. That's one up your ass, Eddie Hearn. I think Irish Tom will love that one there. And I picked Dillian Whyte to win. I think he's just gonna be a bit fresher, be a bit be a bit lighter probably. Lucas Browne is in there with a chance though. He's got obviously good power, so he's in there with a chance. If Lucas Browne comes in light, he's got a real chance of winning this fight.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting that both of the panelists you've gone so far have referenced controversy and referenced judging. I think this fight does have the potential to be one of those fights where we are talking about the scorecards afterwards. I kind of share Jet and Jay's opinion that this is one that could potentially go the distance, despite the fact they're both billed as big punches. I think it could be cagey. I think it could be tentative. And if we go to the scorecards, you'd rather be Dillian Whyte than Lucas Browne seems to be the consensus. Let's bring in Seri and get him to throw his hat into the ring with his take on this one. Where do you stand, mate?
Yeah, mate, I actually completely agree with that. I think if it does go to the scorecards, then it is going to be a controversial one, isn't it? I mean, Dillian Whyte's not a big puncher. Let's be honest, lads. He's not. I know he's billed as one, like you said there, BG, but he's not a big puncher. I don't think he is. Technically speaking, he's quite poor as well. He's just he is what he is. He's an entertaining character, and I think he's literally his career has kind of just been where it's at because of the performance he put in against Joshua. That's all it is. If he hadn't fought Joshua, where would he be right now? Let's be honest. It's one of those things. I'm not trying to take away from him, and of course the Chisora fight was a top fight of the year contender and all that for 2016, and that was what it was as well. But I mean, outside of that, Dillian Whyte's been in Borefest every single fight, hasn't he? Realistically, everyone's been talking about how bad his fights were after that. The Hellenius fight was rubbish. The Lewison fight wasn't very good. David, what's his name? Oh, I forgot his name. What's his name? Why do I know his name? Yeah, Dave Allen. That fight was rubbish as well, So all the fights he's been in outside of Joshua and the Chisora fight have been, not really very exciting, and they've been just non-factors in his career. But this fight again is I don't want to sound like a moaner today. I feel like I'm moaning a lot, but I feel like this fight is, for me, I'm not even that bothered about it. If it didn't happen, I wouldn't care. Put it that way. This whole thing about it's such a great fight. The way Hearns said outside of the title fights, this is the best fight heavyweight. No, it's not. It's really not. Neither man is that good. I don't think Whyte should be a substantial favourite or anything in this fight. I think it's actually a lot closer than what people would probably say. But I definitely agree with everything you're saying, BG, in terms of we don't know in terms of the inactivity, the age, the performance enhancing drug side of Lucas Browne. What sort of fight is he going to turn in, and what sort of state will he enter the ring in? Punching wise, definitely he's a bigger puncher. One punch wise, he's definitely got the power, and he's a big, strong guy, and he's a big unit overall. And I think I don't think it's going to be a good fight. I think it's going to be a very boring and leave a sour taste type of fight. I think deep down Eddie Hearn knows that, but he can't not say that. But he did say in a few interviews, I don't want to say too much because of what was it, Chilemba and what was his name, Coley,
Yeah.
Was it not Chilemba? Sorry, Chamberlain. Sorry, I said Chilemba. Sorry, yeah.
Doesn't want to do anything after a Coley Chamberlain.
Yeah, exactly. So I feel like it's going to be a slight, type of repeat of that, if anything. Where it's going to be billed as, oh my god, such a great fight and all that stuff.
Don't bring that fight up. I had to sit through that live. That fucking shit. The best part of it was
unfortunately for you, Jeff, I think
towards the ring. Basically, that's how bad the fight. The actual card
was. Oh yeah, that's a shame. You don't want to see that, but yeah, I think it's going to be similar to that, mate. For honest with you, I don't think it's going to be anything special. I'd love to be proven wrong. I'd love for my doubts to be totally proven wrong. If it'd be a great fight, I just personally don't think it will be. That Chisora and Whyte fight was a one-off, and that's because Chisora really went for it. Whyte, I think it was just their kind of thing, and I don't think he won that fight, if I'm honest with you. But I think it will go to the cards, and I think Whyte will sneak a decision. But I think Lucas Browne is live in the fight. I think it's not a far apart fight in terms of the abilities of the fighters. It's just those questions that we have over Lucas Browne or what are going to make or break this fight, I think. But generally speaking, I think I don't think it's going to be a very attractive fight, put it that way, personally. But again, I'm sorry to sound like a moaner today.
Well, I think there's a time and a place. And I think a Coley Chamberlain is certainly that time and place. And let's hope and pray that this isn't another one of those, because, none of us deserve that, I'll tell you. On the undercard, Scott Cardle versus Lewis Ritson, Frank Buglioni versus Callan Johnson, also the likes of Derek Chisora, Chris Congo, Anthony Fowler, Craig Spider Richards, and Jamie Cox in action. Lewis Ritson, Cardle, Buglioni, Johnson, good trade fights.
Well, Ritson, I think, is going to walk through Cardle. Cardle, he didn't have a good time last time out against Robbie Barrett. He lost the belt to, and then obviously Ritson kind of destroyed Barrett. I'm not saying obviously boxing triangles, but stars make fights. I think Cardle's a lot of flash, no substance, and I know he's Ultra Tech's one of his favorite boys, so I won't tear into him too much. But I think Lewis Ritson's he's a really, really good guy at British level. I think he's actually above British level. I think he can go on to European and beat guys like Edis Tatley and those sort of guys at lightweight. In Europe, he's one of the better guys in the British mix. Destroyed Joe Murray in the last fight, so he's really, really solid. Was it Buglioni? Mate, that guy's shit, man. I have no interest in watching that guy.
He could get done, though.
Sorry?
He could get beat, I think.
Yeah, I think, Callum Johnson is a fairly well-schooled amateur. And
Yeah.
I think, Buglioni gets punched in the face. Like, he uses his face as a punching bag. And if he does that against Callum Johnson, who's going to probably stick the jab out all night in his face, and Don Charles doesn't have a plan B for, his guys there, kind of just come forward, take as many blows as he can, just throw as many shots as you can and wear the guy down. And if he tries to do that against Callum Johnson, I think, can outbox him. So he better be careful. He always says he's this big, strong guy at 175 now. He's not weight drained and stuff. He didn't do well with Ricky Summers. Let's put it that way. He struggled a couple of rounds against Ricky Summers, who's like a part-time boxer or something like that. So, he better be careful. You better know what he's wishing for, because if he's going there looking for an absolute tear up, Callum Johnson will box his ears off. So,
yeah, I suspect all this Anthony Yard chat that's been going on for the last 6 months could very easily die this Saturday, because I agree with you, Jet. I think Johnson is a far better schooled boxer, and Buglioni's kryptonite is the jab. Having said that, Callum Johnson last had a fight in the 1980s, so it's kind of hard to see where he's at.
That's the problem. It depends what sort of shape he comes into. Obviously, he pulled out of the fight 1-2 times already, so it depends. It's all depends. It's kind of like the Lucas Browne, Dillian Whyte. Depends what version of Lucas Browne. But in this case, it depends on what version Callum Johnson comes into the ring at. If he's healthy and he's somewhat close to his best, he's too good for Frank Buglioni. I think I'd even pick Jose Burton over Frank Buglioni in a rematch. I think he'd box a bit smarter towards the end, and he wouldn't get tired down the stretch. Buglioni is good. I'm not knocking him, and that's also he's done well to get where he's at currently. But there's levels, and he was talking. He gave a very good interview, actually. I don't know if you guys saw it on IFL quite a while ago now. He was talking about Andre Ward and Sergey Kovalev, how he got offered the fights, and he said, "I'm not good enough for those guys. I turned it down," or something like that. But he knows what sort of level he is, so him trying to say I'm above British level, but then saying that in an interview is a bit hypocritical, and it's got more than a whiff of double standards there. So Buglioni better be careful what he wishes for, because sooner or later he's a knockout waiting to happen, to be honest.
Absolutely, it's only a matter of time, you suspect. But we'll have to see if Callum Johnson is the man when it comes to Saturday night. Definitely. Jay, any other thoughts on anyone else who's on the card, mate?
I think Buglioni, you've got to give him a little bit of respect, really, to be honest, because
he's getting a hard time. Yeah,
because he's beaten 4 unbeaten fighters straight off, one after another, for a fifth to keep this British belt. And how many
who did he fight? He fought Ricky Summers. He fought Jose Burton, who was losing to. Ricky Summers is a part-time boxer, pretty much. And he fought Craig Spider Richards, who just moved up from super middleweight, and he was in his less than 10 fights. And who else did he fight?
Callum Johnson, Ricky Summers, Jose Burton, Craig Richards.
Those guys all have, apart from Jose Burton, I think they all have. There's always been something against them. You got to look at. I'm not knocking the guy. He's done well to be where he's at. You know what I mean? But he's always had the upper hand. He's always had the advantage going into the fight. Jose Burton, obviously, he was losing that fight, and fair play to him, he knocked him out. Fair dues to him, done well. Credit to him. Spider shouldn't even been in the ring. He got in with a couple of days' notice, less than 10 days' notice.
Yeah,
Ricky Summers is a part-time boxer.
Yeah, hates him.
I don't hate him.
You do, Jet.
I do think he's one of the most overrated fighters in British boxing.
I do. That's probably like a character assassination or something. But people were talking, Frank Buglioni, he's with Frank Warren. He's a top fighter. He drew with Lee Markham. Who's an English level fighter. And Frank Buglioni would probably punch my teeth down my throat. I'm not saying that, but you got to look at it. He's fighting a part-time boxer, a guy on less than 10 days' notice. He's done well to win the British title and basically keep it outright. I give credit to the guy. I'm not saying that, but he's always gone in the fight with an advantage, especially in his last 3-4 fights. He's calling out Anthony Yard, but he don't want that work. because he's saying other things in interviews. He's saying one thing and then he's saying a complete different thing. He's got to be careful what he wishes for because he's going to get knocked out sooner or later. Especially if because he thinks he's above British level as well. The way he goes on, he thinks he's like a European world level fighter.
All I was actually saying.
sorry, mate.
What I was actually saying was just fair play to him for winning the British belt outright and beating four unbeaten fighters, regardless of their levels. There's not many people that do that. That's all I was saying. And apparently he's going to sign for Reading tomorrow. So,
well, we don't need him, mate. We already got rid of one scrub. We don't need another.
Do you think he'll beat Callum Johnson, Jay?
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah, I do. I think he'll get that bout and he'll keep it forever, and then he'll go on to be a future Hall of Famer.
Wow.
Possible. No.
Boxing Super Series at light heavyweight.
Yeah.
Bivol.
I think it's the toughest fight of his career, obviously. But I think he's definitely with a shout to win it for sure. I'm not as much of a hater as Jet is when it comes to Frank Buglioni. Even though I had a friend that used to doctor his Wikipedia page on a regular basis.
Irish Tom.
No, I had a friend and he used to, when we were at work, he used to get into his Wikipedia page and just make shit up about him and see how long it would last.
Irish is the GOAT, man. Long live Irish Tom.
Yeah.
Gents, it's that time of the pod. Let me go around the panel and ask everyone any more before we call it a night. We've got through the agenda. Seri, perhaps let me go to you first.
I just wanted to see if anyone has got an opinion on this whole Golovkin, like his recent comments, saying that Canelo's been on drugs since the first fight and he had injections in his stomach and all sorts of stuff. I wanted to see if anyone's what opinion everyone has regarding, Golovkin's recent comments and also Abel Sanchez's constant, rubbish that he's spouting, and then it's not leaving a very good taste in my mouth personally in terms of the build up to the fight. It's not ideal, is it, for a rematch of this size? And also, I'm just kind of wondering where everyone's heads are at in terms of the rematch. Where are you leaning towards? I know the Canelo thing is kind of clouded now, but where are you leaning towards in terms of who wins the fight and why?
I'll be completely honest. First and foremost, I haven't actually seen those comments, so it's not me trying to duck it. It's more that I've been pretty head in work at present, and I'll need to take the time to go and look them up. I will say, from my perspective, this whole saga has made the rematch substantially less attractive, and I'm less bothered about seeing it. In terms of who I'm going to pick, at this point, if you made me choose, I'd probably go with Canelo. And the reason I'd go with Canelo is because he's a guy who should be coming into his peak. Golovkin's not going to be getting any better. There's potential reason that he could have lessened, in terms of his peak since the first fight. But the real reason is I don't believe Canelo is going to get stopped. And the judging in Canelo's career has favoured him so consistently that it's very, very hard to sit here and pick him to get beat if you believe the fight's going to go to points. And I'm sorry that that's a sort of boring and pessimistic way of answering the question, but that's my honest take on it.
No, that's absolutely fine, man. That's your opinion, and a lot of the points are valid. But are you saying you don't think that Canelo will ever be able to beat Golovkin clean, per se?
I don't know. Because I don't have, if I'm honest, because I haven't read up on it and because I don't know the respective arguments, I can't tell you that I have a strong impression as to whether or not he was clean or not in the first fight.
Sorry. When I said clean, that was probably the wrong word to use. I mean, you don't think he can beat him clearly? I wasn't talking about the drugs, just generally speaking.
No, I don't think he'll beat him clearly unless Golovkin really has got hold overnight. I think if Canelo wins on points, it'll be a very close fight.
Yeah, fair enough. What about you? What about the other lads?
Is it definitely going ahead?
Yeah, it's going ahead.
The fight is still scheduled to happen.
So Golovkin coming out saying that his muscles were clearly bigger and that you could visually see the injections, the injection marks. It says a lot, really, for me about Golovkin. It's a bit disappointing because if you do see that and you see that, then don't make the fight. Don't let it happen. Where the money talks, isn't it? Golden Boy are coming out saying, he's just trying to make excuses, etc., etc. For Canelo to test positive for clenbuterol or for any performance drug, it's definitely him. This Mexican meat, we all know it's complete bullshit. You know what I mean? The guy's got multi-million-pound teams around him that will be doing this sort of thing, and be very wary of it. He's got caught out. But really, if I were Golovkin, well, it's easy for me to say because I've not got millions of dollars dangling in front of my face. But if I was Golovkin, for the good of the sport, for the good of everyone, he should turn around and say, no, I'm not fighting him because he's a cheat. But, Golovkin cannot say, yeah, he was on drugs, this, that, and the other, and he's obviously taking drugs, and then go and fight him. I mean, what does that say about Golovkin? He says he wants the cash. Either that or he wants to be the person that beats someone on drugs, which I can't really see happening. So, yeah, it's very, very disappointing. Very disappointing. It's very sad because, I was quite looking forward to that fight. But now you're always going to be thinking, aren't you? You're going to, even if they are both clean, or if Canelo is clean, you're still going to be thinking, aren't you? What if? And that's you never want to go into a boxing match, watching a boxing match, thinking one of those people is a drugs cheat, like watching Hellenius, wasn't it, against Povetkin? It was just
Dupar.
Yeah, Dupar. That was it, and it's not good to watch, is it? It's very sad. But
I won't be giving Canelo too much credit if he beats Golovkin. I'll put it that way.
Well, maybe this is what Golovkin's going at. That if Canelo beats him when he was on drugs, so of course he's going to beat me. If I was on drugs, I'd have beaten him. So maybe that's an angle, but really, if he's got that much of a problem with it, Golovkin, which he was obviously pissed off about. If you've watched the interviews with him, he's obviously raging about it, and his trainer's obviously raging about it. But if you're that mad about it, don't let it happen. But money talks, unfortunately, and Canelo and Golden Boy will do everything they possibly can to keep Canelo in clean as possible and blameless as any fighter on the earth, because he's their golden ticket.
100%, yeah.
Sad.
It's sad. Jay, just quick on you, mate.
Because he'd take another 40 minutes moaning about Tyson Fury, probably.
He'd go on a tangent, wouldn't he, about Tyson? He would. But yeah. Jay, quick one for you, mate. In terms of the actual fight itself, how do you see it playing out? Any different to the first one?
Well, this is it. This is the issue now, isn't it? Because personally, I felt Golovkin won the first one. Not by a round, very little. And I was hoping, Golovkin would do the same thing again with more intensity possibly than he had last time, even more. But again, you're going to ask yourself those questions. Is Canelo a better fighter through using performance-enhancing drugs? It'd be very stupid if he's using in training camp now, performance-enhancing drugs. It'd be very, very foolish. And he's probably not, to be honest. He's probably been caught out and then he's not going to go anywhere near it. But, you are going to look at it again and think, is he an improved fighter because of it? But if they are on a level playing field, I will tip Golovkin to beat him.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Canelo and Golden Boy's robbery judges, Adelaide Bird, 120-108. Canelo Alvarez wins the unified middleweight titles because they're all fucking corrupt.
It is the same, isn't it? I mean, it's just destroyed enthusiasm for the fight, certainly amongst this panel, but I suspect amongst the wider boxing community.
Jokes aside, let's be serious, yeah. Canelo's never going to lose a decision. He's not going to lose a decision. No matter how much people think, oh, Golovkin is going to beat him up, he's going to mark Canelo up, he's going to hurt him to the body. No matter how much that happens, Golden Boy, Eric Gomez, who else? Oscar De La Hoya, Bernard Hopkins, they're all going to put the money in the back pocket of the judges and make sure Canelo Alvarez does not lose. If he doesn't get a wide decision, he's going to get a draw at the very least. It's going to happen. It's not. I know me and BG probably on the same fence here, but It's not nice to say it, but at the end of the day, the facts speak for themselves. All the cards speak for themselves. Erislandy Lara, he got a bit of a shady decision there. Who was the other one? Trout, dodgy decision. He's got dodgy. The Cotto cards were wide, even though it was a fairly close fight. The Golovkin cards, they were all shrouded in doubt. The Floyd Mayweather card, the draw.
Oh, that was actually the worst of the lot.
That was the worst of the lot. That was the worst. Was it CJ Ross or something? I can't remember.
Yeah, CJ Ross.
But every Canelo fight, there's always a dodgy card. Every single fight. If it's not one, it's two cards, and that's how Canelo scrapes the victory. It's always happens, and it will never change because he makes so much money for for Mexico, for Golden Boy. Boxing as a whole. They're not gonna think. Whoever boxes him is gonna get robbed. It doesn't matter how well you box. You could be Muhammad Ali in there and absolutely box Canelo's head off. You still probably take it out.
But this makes you wonder what frame of mind Golovkin's in at this point.
That's probably what he's thinking.
Because he must know this. He must know this.
But he must be thinking that in the back of his mind, Jay.
Yeah, of course.
You know what I mean? Everyone here is educated on this podcast. I mean, everyone must, if you read between the lines, you must think, Golovkin's obviously, he's going to be well annoyed if he loses this fight. Canelo's on the juice, and on top of that, he'd probably get a dodgy decision if Golovkin's in the fight, and it's a 7-5 fight or something, and he gets done 10-2 or something like that, which he did almost last time. So it's embarrassing. It actually looks embarrassing for the sport because some of my family, friends, and that sort of stuff, they watch boxing, but they don't take too much of an interest in the UK boxing and that sort of stuff. It's mostly America and the big names in America, and they're always harping on about Canelo. I was like, go watch all of his fights in depth and see the fights and see how well he performed and see the scorecards and how bad the scorecards reflect his performance. There's no correlation as Canelo's done well and he gets an amazing score. Canelo's done okay. He's had a close fight, but he gets some crazy scorecard of like 118, 110. It's every fight.
Yeah.
Sorry, I sound like a complete arsehole today, but
you're on one today, Jet. I tell you.
No, but it's sad to see. It ruins the sport. It's not just with Canelo. It happens with so many other fighters. It happens with loads of other fighters.
He's probably the most notable example.
He's probably the most notable, yeah.
Controversy.
That, yeah.
With the scoring, the home promoter, the performance-enhancing drug controversies. He's even the weight draining controversies. He's kind of surrounded.
The weight draining is awful because he done it, and he looked. Liam Smith's a big 154 guy, and he looked absolutely hulking compared to Liam. Liam Smith looked like a twig compared to him. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that. If we also brought that up, Saddam Ali versus Liam Smith, WBO 154 title on the line.
Yeah, we mentioned that earlier, Jack.
Oh, okay, I didn't know. I just thought.
What's your take on that one?
Not the best fight. I'm not going to say it's a glamour fight or anything, but Saddam Ali done well against Cotto. He's known to be a bit chinny. Obviously, he's probably not a super welterweight or light middleweight, whatever you call it. Smith's obviously sort of a decent guy the way he makes weight well and stuff. Obviously, he didn't make weight 2 times ago against Liam Williams, but does the weight all right. He's a bit big. He brings pressure. Could wear Saddam Ali down the stretch, I think. But good fight. Saddam Ali's got some skills as well. So one of those fights, boxer versus pressure fighter.
Yeah, anything more to throw into the mix before we call it a night?
No, nothing for mine, mate.
Jay, let me hand it over to you, pal. Anything else before we wrap it up for the evening?
No, all good, mate. All good.
Great stuff. Well, unless there's any more, we'll call it a day there, guys. It's been a productive 2 hours. It's good to be back on a Wednesday night. We will, of course, be back next Wednesday, where we will be doing something of an Anthony Joshua versus Joseph Parker special, as you guys would expect on the podcast. So please make sure you tune into that for all your Parker Joshua discussion and predictions, which will be coming next week. We will, of course, also be discussing the aftermath of Whyte-Browne versus Dillian Whyte and whoever emerges victorious on that fight, which could be interesting as well, especially if there's controversy. So other than that, let me thank everyone who's been in the chat from start to finish, watching us as we've been live. Let me thank all the panelists who, as ever, have given up their Wednesday evenings. And let me also say, if you're looking for more boxing chat, do subscribe to Jet's channel on YouTube, which is the Boxing Discussions channel. I'll wrap it up by saying, please hit the thumbs up button and please press subscribe if you haven't already done so. And as always, many, many thanks indeed for tuning in. Have a good evening, everyone.
Happy Wednesday for Irish Tom.
Ta-da.
Cheers, guys.